Another team that was closely watched previously because of a quarterback that was coming out of high school early and is enrolled there in the spring, and just because of who they are and the name brand that they are, is the Texas Longhorns. The Texas Longhorns had their spring game last weekend. Um, One thing with Texas that's going to be looked at is obviously Steve Sarkisian. Are they going to have a handle on the offense? And people wanted to see Archie Manning play and see what he was going to bring. He was a highly sought out recruit, obviously. And then another reason people are really looking at Texas is this is going to be their last time in the Big 12. They're going to be off to the SEC. And people had Steve Sarkisian on the hot seat, which I did not agree with. Your first year coming into a place or your second year, that you need time to build up a program. Just up and down with Texas. So one takeaway big time from Texas is, before we get to the big thing that maybe a lot of people weren't going to discuss, is that the wide receivers there are super athletic. Joining Winnington making plays. AD Mitchell, that guy is good. He's good. Xavier Worthy's really good. Jonathan Cook the second is the second string. Those guys during the spring game, a big takeaway is that wide receiver room is going to be very talented. It's going to cause a lot of issues with a lot of teams. And with the mind of Steve Sarkisian and his offense, it's going to be similar to how he was using wide receivers with his time at Alabama. I guarantee. That was a big takeaway, is the wide receiver room. That's going to be one of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, and definitely the Big 12. So there's no short of talent on that side of the ball. The running backs, there's a little difference there. You have to replace Robinson, but you have Jaden Blue. That's the guy that really stuck out. He ran the ball hard. He made a lot of good moves. And I think that's going to be the guy. Right now, Jonathan Brooks is labeled as a starter, but I think the combination of those two is going to really help out the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. If they can get the type of run game going that Steve Sarkisian could get going when he was at Alabama, with this wide receiver group that you are watching on the spring game, they struggled at the very beginning of the spring game, but once it got going, they settled in. And that's why you have the spring game, so they get the game vibe and they can keep that going in the summer and into fall camp. It's going to be, if it can start clicking with all of that, it's going to be big time for Texas on that side of the ball. And we'll come right back to the offensive side. Defensively, they looked fast. They flew to the football. They have some tall corners that were matching up with the tall receivers. Now, the weakness has been the defense. It necessarily hasn't always been the offense for Texas when Steve Sarkisian's there. It's been the defense. But watching them play, they have a lot of juniors. They have some senior transfers in. I think that if they can just keep people, they need to take the Notre Dame approach of keeping everything in front of them, let the speed up front try to do its job. I think that's the route they need to take. If that defense can hold up and you get the offense clicking with those players that they have with the wide receiver room and with the running backs, Texas is going to compete in the Big 12. The one thing that they need to start thinking about with recruiting is their defensive line and linebackers. They look like they're made for the Big 12. They're going to fly around. They're fast. They look strong. They were holding up on Texas offensive line, who is a big offensive line. They struggled a little bit with the pass protection at the beginning of the spring game, but then as it was going on, they started to really pick up the stunts and pressures that the defense was putting on them. But they need to start the SEC. If you notice, I talked about it with Alabama. They're starting to revert back to getting the big defensive linemen if they can. Not the biggest, back when Alabama was first, when Coach Saban first was getting there, they've really gone to the smaller defensive linemen. Alabama is starting to get back to the big defensive line because of the run stuff that is slowly coming back, especially in the SEC. The Big 12 is still going to sling it around. They're still going to do those things. So they're built for that. But is that going to be able to hold up in the SEC when they go there next year? I think Steve Sarkisian came out and said that there is a quarterback competition. So people said, oh, there's no quarterback battle. There's no discrepancy because they've come out and said Quinn Ewers was going to be the starter. Watching Malik Murphy throw the football over 160 yards and has numbers just like, Quinn Ewers, who started 10 games last year, there's going to be a quarterback competition. I don't care what Steve Sarkisian said, they're leaning towards Quinn Ewers. And you don't want to put everything into the spring game. I've said it a lot, but this has to mean something because if you're into coaching, there's a thing called gamers. And us coaches love gamers and we hate gamers at the same time. We hate gamers because we're at practice and they're lazy. They don't listen to you. You know, they're not doing everything that's asked of them, or they're not going 100% like you need them to, or don't think they're giving you the effort. But when the lights click on or when they step onto the court, they're there. They're listening to everything you're saying. They're out there competing. They're doing their thing. Malik Murphy could be that type of guy. I don't know reports on him at practice because there was no report besides Steve Sarkisian saying there could be this quarterback competition. I think there is a quarterback competition. If that's how he's going to perform in scrimmages and games, Quinn Ewers better watch out for Malik Murphy because he threw the ball very well. He threw very catchable balls that some of the receivers dropped. He had awareness in the pocket. And I think that's a guy, he's a redshirt freshman who started to get healthy for the spring game. I think there's going to be, just like at Alabama, there's going to be a quarterback battle there. Arch Manning did not look the best during the spring game. And this is where I sometimes overreact to spring ball, but then I don't overreact to spring ball. This does not mean Arch Manning is going to be terrible. He had a great high school career. Should be a senior in high school right now. This was his first college game, quote unquote, playing in. So the people saying how bad he is, you know, he did not look like he threw the ball well. It's true. He looked like he did not throw the ball well. He did not. Part of me is shocked that he's not redshirted, so that way he could take the year to get stronger and learn the offense a little more and everything else. But he's there. He's a freshman. They could decide to redshirt him. He has to be ready to go. But I think Malik Murphy looked better than Arch Manning. Now he has a little more grasp on the offense, and this could change. I personally, unless Arch Manning just takes off at some point in practice or something happens during the season, he may not play this year. It's going to come down to Quinn and Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy looked very good. Do not be shocked if throughout the summer Malik Murphy just takes the step. It's going to be going back and forth, back and forth. Don't be surprised if eventually he starts the first game or if Quinn just makes a few mistakes early on in the season, that Malik Murphy is going to be your starter for the Texas Longhorns as the season progresses. If Ewers really does start to struggle a little bit, especially that second game versus, the Alabama Crimson Tide there, if he struggles right then and there, that could be a possibility because, they should be able to handle Rice. They should be able to handle Wyoming, but it depends. If he doesn't just absolutely play well against Rice, he played well against Alabama last year, and people are writing off Alabama, which is true. If you want to put Nick Saban as an underdog, great. But if he struggles there and doesn't recover around Baylor and Kansas time because Kansas taking that next step forward, Malik Murphy sitting right there nipping at the heels. And then behind both of those is a Manning who is going to get better throughout the summer, and he is going to get better as the season is going on. I don't think you'll see him. It's going to come down to those two. I don't think you'll see Arch Manning, but do not be surprised if Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, somewhere in that stretch, if Quinn Ewers isn't healthy, if he's not playing well, and Malik Murphy's healthy, and in practice he's showing you a lot of stuff, don't be surprised with some type of quarterback battle that he's going to be the guy and he's going to be starting. And so don't be surprised to see that because he looked really good in the spring game.